Dude, I was being a little bit of a nerd. We were up for a long time doing numbers and thinking about things. Okay, well, I was thinking about gacha systems a lot. Do you know what I wanted? I wanted a visual representation so people can like see with their eyeballs like what it looks like. That's what I think. I want like an actual visual graph representation so I could just show people what I'm talking about rather than just like speak it in words. Because like I could say things in words and like people just won't believe me, or they can't see. So I will just show. But a lot of people have been saying that the Silver Palace gacha, this pity, sucks and is terrible, right? Like it's awful, right? It's genuinely terrible. On average, you will probably do like 10 less pulls for 𝑬𝑽𝑬 than Silver Palace. A game like 𝑬𝑽𝑬 or like HSR and 𝑧𝑦 or whatever, they have so much variance in where you could get a 5-star, right? Especially after you hit soft pity, right? It's like here, like where you start to see the uptick in the curve, that's like the beginning of like the soft pity buildup, right? That's the beginning of it. And there's so much variance that like there's a chance you could get during that time to get a 5-star, which brings its whole average down, right? It brings its whole average down. But it all banks on one thing. If you lose your 50-50 at soft pity, if you go all the way to soft pity and you lose your 50-50, Silver Palace wins every single time, right? That's the condition. I don't think Silver Palace is like, I don't think it's dreadful. I don't think it's the worst thing ever. The other thing I keep hearing being mentioned, oh, but like, it's like Enfield where you can lose like multiple times on the run up to the pity. In Silver Palace, the rate of getting a 5-star is already so low, right? It's 0.8%, right? Well, overall it's 1.8, including like the pity at 100, but it's 0.8%. The chances of you getting like 2 losses, I know it's 25-75, but the chance of you even getting 1 5-star before pity is like less than 20%. To begin with, like the chance of you even getting a 5-star at all is like low. The chance of you getting 2 in a row that are not the featured is like 8%. I was doing it yesterday. It's literally like 8%. So like anyone that's like, oh my god, this is a possibility. Who cares about the like fucking 8% chance of that happening when like 90% of the time you're just gonna be going to 100 anyway? Literally, that's what the math says. Like 90% of the time you will just be going to 100 fucking pity. Like it doesn't make sense. I have been absolutely in the trenches all night and all morning compiling some information, some data, some simulations of each of these gachas to give you a bit more of a rounded view of what exactly is going on, okay? We're including more gachas. We've got NTE, Wuthering Waves, Enfield, Honkai Star Rail, Zenless, and Silver Palace. Enfield, oh my goodness, was kind of annoying to add on, but it's here now, we're doing it. And we're going to be looking at the average copies owned per player, right? And then we're going to be going through an actual breakdown of what that looks like. Like how, like for 100 people, how many people are getting 1 copy? How many getting 2? How many getting 3? I think that's actually the important bit of information that changes the perspective on a lot of these. So we're going to be looking at that. And I've chosen 4 different pull points. 80, because that's the hard pity for a lot of games. 100, 180, and 300. So we're going from the 50-50s hard pities to the guaranteed single characters, to the whale territories of pulling for dupes, and how it stacks up, and what game is better at giving you what and where and why and how. And I'm going to explain a little bit about what all this data actually means. So let's go and zoom through this, shall we, for like 80 pulls. We could see straight off the bat, right? NTE is crazy. In 80 pulls, you're obviously guaranteed a character. On average, people are going to get 1.29. 29% of people are going to get more than 1 character when it comes to NT, which is crazy. Wuthering Waves, 0.68 copies. So at 80, 68% of people at 80 pulls will have already got their featured character. That's what that means at this point, right? But below 1, right? Not 68% of people have their featured character in Wuthering Waves by the time they're at 80 pulls. Whereas Silver Palace, it's 0.16. Okay? Very important piece of information. A lot of people were saying that Silver Palace is very similar to Enfield, where you can lose your 50-50 multiple times, right? You can lose your 50-50 multiple times, and it's going to be this big deal, this big problem. It's going to feel like shit. Well, guess what? Silver Palace, as far as we know right now, doesn't have a soft pity. Obviously, that if it ends up being it does, this will all change. But it doesn't have a soft pity. The rate of you pulling below 100 pulls, the rate of you pulling a featured below 100 pulls is extremely low, right? And 80 pulls is a 16% chance of that even happening in the first place, right? Of getting that featured character. So to lose, if it's 0.16%, okay, to get the featured character, to lose 2 25-75s, right? To get two of those 75-25s in a row, it's like 8% or something crazy. It's very, extremely unlikely to happen. And I think it's kind of dishonest if people keep saying that, well, this is a possibility for Silver Palace. Like, yes, it could be a possibility. There will be a certain percentage of people out of 100, out of anyone, who that will happen to. Is it likely? Not at all. The same way we wouldn't say that, like, well, in Wuthering Waves, you know, I mean, you can go to 160 pity, right? You can go to 160 pity. It's unlikely to happen, so we don't really say that it does, right? It's not something that we consider. Okay, so then we go to this over here, the copies gained per 80 pulls. And this is the real telling piece of information, right? NTE, only 1% of people get absolutely nothing, okay? Only 1%. Everybody gets their pulls. You get a pull, you get a pull, and you get a pull, okay? And not only that, but 24% of people get 2 or more. That's nuts. That is crazy. Wuthering Waves, after 80 pulls, obviously it's that hard pity, that 50-50. 40% of people will still be left with absolute nothing, nada, zilch. 54% will have their featured character, and 7% will get lucky. 7% will get lucky, and you will be able to get an additional copy, 2 or more. And we can see here, it's slightly worse for Enfield, and even slightly worse for Hunger Stars Zealots again. And Silver Palace is majorly down in the shits. Majorly down in the trenches beyond 80, because as we know, there is, as far as we're aware, there's no soft pity build-up, as we know so far. So obviously, it's unlikely you're going to be pulling anytime soon. The soft pity is what brings down the average for these games, right? It's what brings it down, because at 60, well, at like 60 pulls or 50 pulls, like 20% of people are going to be already having that featured character anyway for 𝑬𝑽𝑬. The base rate is also just like a lot nicer, right? But what the incline, the amount that you're going to be getting that featured 5-star is a lot nicer compared to Silver Palace because of the soft pity build-up, right? And how that affects like the pulling rates and the base rates. It's very interesting. Things change, however, when you go to 100 pulls. And this is the most telling of Silver Palace, and really one of its standouts. So let's go take a look, shall we? Obviously, this is the graph right now for how everything looks for number of featured characters pulled in 100. And obviously, we've got the line here for 80, because that is most games hard pity. NTE still storming ahead, okay? Massive still storming ahead, 1.59 copies. Silver Palace all the way up to 1, okay? Because this is the point. After 100 pulls, everybody has a pull. There's no unlucky people, right? There's no such thing as like, oh, you know, missed 50-50. Everyone's got a pull at Silver Palace, okay? And we can see that being reflected right down here, right? Copies gained per 100 pulls. NTE still storming. Bro, 11% of people 100 pull have 3 or more. Like, genuinely, it's kind of bonkers to think about when you put it in perspective like this. Like, it really is. Silver Palace is now second quote-unquote best, as in likelihood of you having a featured 5-star at this point. Everyone, basically, every single person has that featured 5-star. But there's something interesting to note when you compare it to these other games, right? I'm gonna pile them together in one group because they're fairly similar. Obviously, 𝑬𝑽𝑬 is a lot more, you know, is better than Enfield and HSR at 100 pulls, right? 100%. But here's the difference, right? And this is where I think personal preference comes down to these pity systems or these spark systems. If you are someone who doesn't like being unlucky, if you're constantly unlucky and you don't like being unlucky, you might be drawn to Silver Palace's gacha more. Yes, on average, you may be spending more pulls than 𝑬𝑽𝑬 to potentially get that featured 5-star, right? Potentially so, because again, like we said, at that 60, at the 70 pull range, right? Well, as we go through the hard pity, there's like a 50% chance at that point you will be able to get your featured 5-star anyway, right? But equally, after 100 pulls, there is still 30% of people, okay? There's still 30% of people, 30 out of 100, that will not have anything at all. And that's what you have to decide what you would rather. Because in 𝑬𝑽𝑬, it allows you to be unlucky. It allows you to be part 100 pulls. You're still gonna be part, you could be part of that 30% that gets, you lose your 50-50, you get nothing. Even 20 pulls later, you get nothing. You could be the 56% that you won your 50-50 and you're happy. Yippee! It also allows you to be lucky, right? So it changes the entire average. So it's up to you to decide what you prefer. You can either be guaranteed and be like, okay, I know I'm going to get my 1. I'm very unlikely to get any more than 1. But I'm also know I'm not going to lose, right? I'm not going to have less than 1. I'm not going to have nothing, right? It's up to you to decide what you prefer in that case. And of course, things like pull economy is where it will matter the most. This is why this 100 pull range, in my opinion, is the most interesting to kind of compare. For when it comes to like pulls per patch, pull income, pull economy, how much they give you for everything. I think it's the most interesting number out of all of the data points for me. This is where a lot of people will be making their choice. This is what a lot of free-to-play people always kind of budget for. I got 100 pulls. Maybe I win my 50-50. Maybe I don't. But in Silver Palace, you know you're going to be guaranteeing that character. Okay, so that's the benefit of Silver Palace. Things very much change after this. Okay, things absolutely very much change after this. When we get to 180 pulls. As we could see here, right? This is the guarantee for Enfield. Now, this is baked into the data. You only get the guarantee if you lost your 50-50. Like, if you haven't gotten the feature before this, at this point. As soon as you get the feature, the spark goes away. So this is all the people that this big jump is all the people, right, who have yet to have gotten the feature character at that point. And it massively raises up the average for Enfield, right? It massively does. Because without it, we could see that it's kind of rough. That incline is not going up. you could see everything else it wants to get overtaken. That incline is not going up. So the spark then saves it, right? The spark absolutely saves it for Enfield. But again, 120 guaranteed the character right there. And we could see here, obviously for NTE, it's still steaming ahead. The slope here isn't as steep as here. And we can see that again being prominent as we get the more pulls that happen, the straighter the line becomes. You might be wondering, why is that? You're manipulating the data. Well, just, you know, to set everything accordingly. It's to do with variance and averages, right? At the very beginning, when you're at 0 pulls, everyone's starting in the same exact boat. A lot of people are going to be going to similar pities when it becomes like during the soft pity buildup, right? Most people will be getting a lot of their pulls between here and here, right? In the pity buildup zone. Then everyone's pity resets, okay? Everyone's pity resets, it goes back to 0, and then people go again. And everyone will be getting pulls at completely different times, at completely different pities. If you continue this over a long enough period of time, everything starts averaging out. So you go from having very steep inclines when everyone, you know, follows the same pity pattern to, oh, you now follow the average the more pulls that you go. So that's why the lines become more steep. No, I'm not manipulating data. That's that's just how that works, right? That's just how that works. And so we could see here that obviously you have that spark at 120. Enfield people become happy. And then again, it's rough, right? It's rough all the way to 180. Like at that point, everyone tells you just stop pulling. If you just want one character, that's it. You're done. Stop pulling in Enfield. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to keep going, right? It's not worth it to keep going unless you're looking for dupes and you want to go for that 240 next time. But again, that's one of the conditions of Arknight's Enfield, right? Like, yes, you can, you know, get these characters, but you have to do it only on one banner. You have to pull a certain amount. There's a lot of conditions surrounding it that just make it more frustrating. So not only is the actual gacha system a bit more needlessly complex than all the other ones around it, right? Confusing people is never a good thing, I think, in gachas. It's also determining on like pull times on banners, whereas every other gacha, pity carries over and it's a lot easier to understand for people, and that's baked into like frustrations when it comes to how people feel about these gacha systems. And we can see here the copies gained per 180, things change massively. Silver Palace obviously is back all the way down at the bottom because the rate of you picking up 5 stars at all in Silver Palace is just low. It's just so omega low until you hit those 100 pull milestones, 100, 200, etc. It's just so omega low. So obviously, Wuthering Waves, this is its time to shine a little bit more, right? If you want to get 2-3 copies, it's looking pretty good now, right? At this point, 180 pulls, 44% will have 2 copies, but 15% are gonna have 3. That's a lot, right? We're now moving up into territories. 180 pulls, getting 2 or more is now looking more likely, right? So 𝑬𝑽𝑬 is looking pretty nice for its dupe getting at this point compared to a lot of the others, right? By significantly so. NTE obviously is no brain, no question. 180 pulls, you're already looking at 4+ copies. It's nuts, absolutely nuts. And the scales change again when it comes to 300 pulls in total. Because don't forget, at 240, Enfield gives you a token for that banner character. Again, this is only considering one banner, right? Gives you a token for that banner character, and boop, it puts up the average way up again. It's the only thing that saves it. It's the only thing that saves it, because without it, look how rough this this travel path is from all the way from 120 to 240. It's a lot more rough, right? It's a lot more rough compared to the others. So you'll be, losing more 50-50s, because if you lose one 50-50, you're not guaranteed like others are, right? You'll be probably losing more over a longer period of time until you get that 240, which is why it could feel more rough when it gets to dupes. However, the interesting thing though is that if dupes are what you care about, Enfield ends up being the better option, right? Like statistically on paper, it does end up being the better option, with Wuthering Waves right behind it. See here, right? 42% of people have 4 copies, 27% have 5, and 9% have 6 copies. And again, Silver Palace is now 4th on the list, and we're seeing that variance. 91% at 300 pulls have their 3 copies, right? 91%, 8% or 9% have 4 or more. But you're not getting that 20%. Right? You're not unlucky, but you're not able to be very lucky either, right? It's not here. You're not able to be very lucky either, but you also have to be able to be unlucky. And that's the trade of a Silver Palace, right? But if I was someone who wanted dupes, Wuthering Waves would look more appealing to me massively, right? It would look more massively appealing to me. And again, this isn't taken into consideration. After a certain amount of pulls for Wuthering Waves, you will be able to get Afterglow corals and buy the dupes on the shop. I think I worked it out. It's something like it can range from anything from like 300 to like 300 to like 500 pulls to be able to get enough Afterglow corals to get an extra dupe. Like it really depends when it comes to 𝑬𝑽𝑬. But obviously that's not represented on a graph, right? You have to bear in mind after a certain amount of pulls, you'll be able to get another dupe for free. So the average goes up even more for Wuthering Waves, right? Mine shot to Silver Palace, that's a thing. After sitting out pulls, you'll be able to get some pulls back on a rebate, right? But Enfield bakes that into their 240 because it just gives you the dupe, right? As a gift, as a reward for 240 pulls. Whereas as 𝑬𝑽𝑬, you then have to go collect it in the shop. So that's quite important distinction to make between these two. Enfield looks better here because of this average, but 𝑬𝑽𝑬, you also got to consider the Afterglow corals and everything like that, right? With all of these and your rebates. Again, this isn't taken in consideration rebates, but Enfield is the only gacha on here that literally gives you a token as a pulling milestone. It's not the same as the guarantee spark because it's not a character, it's a token. So I factored it in kind of differently for this one. So I just feel like this is just an interesting way to look at all the data. I'll put a link down below for you to actually go and like view the numbers yourself. I just think it's good to have everything out visually of how these gacha systems work. Because obviously, a lot of people say, oh, this gacha system is so much worse than this one. If you want to actually talk about the systems themselves, you're able to use this for reference now. Go ahead, use it for however you want. I'm not here to shill for any particular game. I don't personally care. I have my preferences of what I like, but you can all make your mind up on what you like and what you prefer, and what you think is good and what you think is bad. If I've made any mistakes in this, you're welcome to let me know in the comments, and I'll add some corrections. At this point, I'm not going to be making any more corrections to the video, but I will put them in a pinned comment below, so you'll be able to see the updates to this. If there's anything massive, there probably is. Knowing me, there's probably something a glaring mistake out of this that's not factored in that I probably should have. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I just think this was vastly interesting. And again, pull economy, pull counts, everything is the most important thing when considering these gacha games. Because again, you could have the worst pity in the world. You could have a 1 in 90 chance of getting the featured 5-star and 1,000 pulls, but devs give you 1,000,000 pulls a patch. Who cares, right? It doesn't matter. It's but it's still, you know, pretty interesting to talk about. So anyone who's saying that like Silver Palace's gacha is like really, really bad, like we don't know. We legitimately do not know. It's not fair to say. Anyone who says 𝑬𝑽𝑬𝑽 is really bad, it's like, well, you've got information. 𝑬𝑽𝑬𝑽 is really bad. NTE sucks as well. I don't. At this point, I don't even know. Like we've already said, NTE, the rate of character acquisition is really high, but they also take a big priority in things like funds. This doesn't take into account that people might continue to roll for like gacha skins for characters that they really like, anything like that. So bearing in mind, this doesn't show the full picture, but it shows a little piece of it. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this information was kind of useful for you. I appreciate y'all. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.